All right. Our hangout is live and on the air, and we're here with Jake McCluskey for his Level 9 critique. Jake, are you pretty excited about this?
Yeah, I feel better about this one than the first one. I don't know if that's
Awesome.
good or bad.
No, no, it's good, man. You're going to learn even more about the stuff that you're doing, and start right off by saying that I'm seeing an unbelievable improvement in the quality of the shots out of the cohort to not just yours but everybody's is just it's
Yeah,
blowing me away, man. Everybody's just learning like crazy, and I put that post in the cohort, and I told everybody that we started out all fun and games and hanging out with each other, and as we go further in this, I'm going to try to keep it as light as possible, but we're also going to tighten the screws a little bit and get you guys really moving forward at a good pace, because my job is really to get you to another level, and no matter what it takes, kicking, screaming, whatever it takes, I'm going to try to get you guys there if I can. And so I put that post up about Pete's webpage there because it was interesting in our master's meeting the other day that we had with Pete and him talking about, this is all, this master and apprentice thing isn't really what it is, or it isn't really what that isn't really what the Arcanum's about. It's more like mentoring. So
right.
my job is essentially, and I've always said this in everything that I do, and I don't go to church on Sunday anymore. I probably be in trouble for that, but I believe in teaching people to fish rather than giving them fish.
Right.
I can give you guys fish all day long, and I can make you more AD wheelers in the world, but that's not really my goal. My goal is to build you for what you want to be and get you to where you want to be. So, so it may seem unorthodox at times, and I know it's confusing to a lot of people. So like, what are we doing? But if you go back and you watch if you watch the Karate Kid and wax on, wax off, he didn't know what was going on either, but he did learn from it. So I don't profess to be that level of master, but I do like throwing the curveballs in there just so that to keep you guys on your toes, and I think you guys have handled it really well and are doing an amazing job. So with that said,
Well,
time.
yeah.
I don't think we need to tell everybody what you want out of the Arcanum, because I think we know from your first interview. Jake, do you have a website that people can see your work at?
No. As a web developer, you'd assume that I have one, but I build everybody else's, and I've been working on mine. I've rebuilt it 6 times in 3 months, and I'm working on. I think I finally got it where I want it, so I'll have that here shortly. But I did want to tell you, I forgot to put it in the email. Every photo you have, actually, I went back and shot brackets of every shot, and actually did HDR the right way. So the photos you actually have weren't part of my original 20. None of them. There isn't a single one, because I didn't have any of them in brackets, and I wanted it bad enough that I went and shot everything back in brackets to turn it to true HDR instead of trying to just push something to its limit.
Yeah, and I think some folks thought that you resubmitted or redid some photos, and that's definitely not what you did. I did notice that you did reshoot everything, and that is absolutely what everybody has to do with their level 9, is they have to go out and bring new works in. That's a requirement, and you did meet that requirement without a problem.
That's why I sent you the raw file, so there couldn't be any question, because you've got the same thing I worked with.
Oh, and I appreciate that, but I definitely could see the difference, and I knew what you were doing. So I do pay attention, even when folks think I'm not paying attention. I'm always paying attention. The cohort is my baby, and I'm all over it. Even though I do miss some things once in a while, I try to capture everything in there and see what's going on with everybody. So yeah, and I did. That was very cool that you sent me all that stuff. It was a little bit of a pain in the butt to get the presentation together with those giant files. I still think that it would be great if people want to send me those in the little write-ups. That's awesome. But for the actual critique, it's better if you upload large files to Google and let them shrink them for me, because
Okay.
I literally had to load all your TIFF files up and then convert them to 92 DPI and then put them into JPEG and then load them over back into Google. Yeah, so it is easier. But I do appreciate, though, seeing the large files, because that really gives me it gives me a truer impression of what you're doing and the advancement that you're making. And let me ask you this: how does it feel now that you're processing like the real deal?
It's a blast. I would tell you the only thing I do is I don't ever shoot just 3. When I go out to shoot, I'll shoot as far negative to as far positive as I can and get as many of them, so when I sit down in Lightroom, I've got all my options. The first time I went out actually was the truck that you've got, and I shot 3, and I came back, I was all excited, and it didn't work. It didn't look great, and I went, I'll never do it that way again. I drove straight back over there. I shot 9 brackets. I came back and picked the ones I wanted and got the image the way I wanted it. Not that the first one I would say is wrong. It just wasn't my vision. And I wanted it to be my way, not just -2, 0, and +2. I was like, that's not what I wanted. And so ever since then, like all the waterfalls, the flowing rocks one where it's all the colors of the rocks, I've got as many as possible, so I've got everything I can work on. So, and that flowing rocks picture, I'm going to go back and redo it because there was another waterfall I couldn't get to. I ended up falling off a 3-foot ledge shooting that day into the water and busting up my thighs. So.
Yeah, you told me about that. But you saved the equipment, so as long as you didn't.
Fine, and I'm walking again, so I'm going back Saturday.
Okay. Good plan. Yeah, it's and something about so addressing that, because that's part of what I noticed with you sending me all the files. And people are like, when are we going to critique the photos? Well, we're actually in the critique right now, so this is kind of all part of it. I noticed that when you sent me the photos, that you sent me like your brackets were, and I'm like, that was one of the things I wanted to address with you. And I don't want to tell you to go out and not shoot those brackets yet. And a lot of masters will probably watch this and go, why isn't he teaching him to do this, and why does it? And so there's method to my madness. And it's essentially the same way that I learned. And the more you go, the more you do this, I don't believe that I can just tell you to go and do this and that you're going to be able to do it that way. I think you're the kind of person like me, I got to go do it and get a feel for it and understand it, and then I will manage what I do from that. So, you overshot brackets a lot in situations where you didn't need them. But I'm not going to say that's a bad thing. And I wouldn't say that to anybody, not just you, but anybody. Because when I first started doing HDR, the things I was trying to learn was more about exposure and aperture and all of that stuff that I didn't really understand.
Yep.
But I knew, when I looked through the viewfinder, I knew it worked, but I didn't know why it worked. I just knew, well, that one works, and that's what I'm going to go with. So when I went out to do HDR, I shot all these brackets because I'm like, I'll be damned if I'm going to go home and find out that, well, man, the clouds are blown out. Well, now what do I do? Because, back then I didn't know about editing and, all that stuff. I just was like, so here I've either traveled a long way or something's, I've found something that I can't go back to. If I miss those brackets, what am I going to do? Like, why not just overshoot them? It's digital. I got plenty of space. Might as well, until I can figure out what I'm looking at and why it comes out a certain way. So the more you process this HDR, and why it was really critical for me to get you over that hump and get you so that you got some brackets and we're doing it, was so that when you're processing, you're going to find what works and what doesn't. Like that one shot that had stuff that was way too bright in it, and you found out if you just cut out half of those, that your halos went away and you didn't get all those weird anomalies in the shot. So you're going to learn more about what works and what doesn't. And after a while when you go out, Jake, you're going to be like, I don't need to do HDR here. I know exactly what I need to do. I need to do HDR here. Only need to do 3 brackets. In this situation, man, I got to shoot 15 or whatever I need to shoot to get the light range. So I'm not asking you to learn that right now because I don't think it's possible with everything that you're learning to just throw that at you and go, yeah, go out and evaluate the light exactly and the scene and then think about composition. after a while, it's going to become so automatic that you're not going to be thinking about it because you're going to be thinking about the composition and what you're seeing. And now your mind is going to start taking more of the impression of the scene in your head rather than thinking about settings and thinking about, you know, am I using the right aperture, is the right lens, whatever. All of that's going to go away, but it's not going to go away just by me telling you that it needs to go away. It's going to go away the more you shoot. And the more you shoot, and it takes a long time. If I was to tell you that in 6 months that you're gonna be like, oh yeah, man, got it in 6 months, I'd be lying to you. It could take 6 months, but you know, for me, I'm still learning. I'm still going out, and you know, as much as I look at the camera and look at the settings and know what's going on, I will still sometimes shoot some extra rackets just in case I need something. I would rather do that than go home and find out that I don't have what I need and call it a bust and wasted time. And I'm a real strong believer in I like to do things once and overdo them if I have to. But I don't want to, you know, if I build a house, I don't want to have to rebuild it in another, you know, year or 2 years down the road. I'm going to build a damn house that's going to hold up for 300-400 years. So even though I might not be here to enjoy it. So, but that's just the way I am with everything. So I'm not going to tell you at this point that, you know, overshooting is a bad thing. So in this critique, you will not hear me talk about that. We may talk about what to look at.
Yep.
And so that goes through your head a little bit, but right now I'm not expecting that from you. So if you are ready.
Yeah, the other reason I did it was so that I could combine different exposures so I could see what the outcome was.
Absolutely.
You know, so those ones that I had 9 on, I combined 9, 8, 7, this 6, this 5, this 4, and I probably got like the shot that I sent you with the colored rocks in the water. I've got that probably edited 10 or 11 different ways with different exposure sets, so I can try to figure out, you know, that. So I could look at it and actually see the end result to try to figure out what was going on with it, as opposed to here's the result I like, and then, you know, try to break it down from there. I just said, oh, you know what, I've got the brackets, let's play with everything and see which ones give me the richer colors or the brighter colors that I like and the, you know, the details that I like. Right. And so a lot of reasons I do it right now is that I can play with it to try to figure it out on the processing side.
Exactly, and I think that's very important. The experimentation or the practice of doing this is something that gets lost. Some people think that they just look up the right settings and go and do it, and then if they mess it up, then that's that. But no, we have to practice, and that's, you know, that one video that I posted, you know, that John Free was talking about, you know, practicing, and that's the best way to learn is what you're doing right now is you're experimenting and you're finding out what works and what doesn't, and that will stick with you much longer than me telling you or Flern telling you or you know, lynda.com telling you or any ebook or any of that stuff, man. Just getting your camera and going out. The Nike philosophy, right? Just do it. So that's the way to go.
For at least 2 hours, no matter if I want to or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what it is. That's my commitment that I will shoot 2 hours of photos every day.
Wow.
Whatever it does. I get up. That's why I get up at 5:30 in the morning.
That's incredible. I wish I could do that. I didn't touch my camera today. I was doing video all day long, so I wish I could do that. I really do. I admire that, Jake. That's awesome.
You got to do it to learn it, and you got to do it to learn it. And so when I decided to join the Arcanum, I decided that meant I was going to shoot every day, no matter if I was tired, cranky, it was raining out, doesn't matter to me. And so I go out every morning or every evening after work and shoot.
Awesome. I think we're going to make you the cohort. When you graduate here, we're going to make you turn around and be the cohort. What do you want to call it? The motivator. We'll call you the motivator. That's gonna, man. I think you've got your new title. I think Jake the Motivator. Awesome. Well, let's get into this thing and kick its butt here. I'm going to share a screen with you. Getting so I almost know what I'm doing. So Look, it's a funky new green logo now,
I
and
like
it's
that.
the big level 9. So part of the level 9 is a change in the rules.
Okay.
So now you've got to get 6 points.
Okay.
And I'm going to be really tough on you for those 6 points.
I
So
hope you are.
so you definitely won't see any zeros. I already looked at your work, and I can tell you that. And there won't be any zeros in this cohort, I don't think, ever. And we're probably going to see mostly 1s and 2s. Might be a 3 in there. You never know. Not making any promises. But you got to get 6 points, and if you do, you're going to graduate to Sphere 1, Level 10, which is a phantom sphere where you get to kind of relax a little bit, and you're not going to have anything to accomplish in Level 10 other than just sitting back and being like, yeah, I did it. I made it to the new area. So, and that's one of the things that I'm doing differently and than other cohorts is that you literally are going to be in a new cohort when you reach level 10. So you will also still be a part of the old cohort. So
Okay.
you are still going to be an active member. We just have a new section that folks who haven't made it to where you're at yet can't see.
Okay.
So you're going to have this privilege of being the first one in there and seeing it with all of the plaster still on the walls, because I have a lot of work to do there. But I've got a little bit done so far, but
You
we're
think I'm
not.
gonna sit and relax, AD?
What's that?
The month you've known me, 6 weeks you've known me, do you really think I'm going to sit and relax?
No, I'm sure you're going to be out shooting and doing all sorts of stuff, and maybe even helping me with the new community,
We can do
or possibly helping me with the old community, because this is all part of your growing experience. So you made it to the new level first, so it's going to be like all on you to step up now,
That's
and
okay.
responsibility and all that stuff. But we'll see where that goes. That's still in the future yet, and we got some cool things planned out for you. Oh, one of the other things that we're also going to have too is you are now going to be the proud new owner of a House Lightbender email address, so that you can have jake@houselightbender.com, and we will make a forwarder for you so that it forwards your email, so you can now proudly wear your badge of honor for the Arcanum pretty much anywhere you want to go. So, yeah, we'll set all that up afterwards. So, first of all, though, we gotta take a look at some photos and see if you made it. So, tell me a little bit about this shot here.
So this is actually, it's called Beaver Bay. It's about an hour and 45 minutes from me. And I don't know if I sent you the whole falls. It's huge. It's a billy goat trail to get down to this, and you're standing on maybe 2 foot of slick rock trying to shoot this whole thing. And me and my buddy that I shoot with went down there, and he stood actually up on the trail, and he was like, I don't think I'm going to go down there. And it's a pretty far drop if I'd slipped here. And I went, yeah, I think it's worth it. And so I went down and shot this, and like we talked about, I only shot 7 brackets on it because the sun was out, and I was trying to play between the clouds, because it was a day on the North Shore, which is probably similar to either coast. Storm blows in, you get sunny 1 minute, cloudy, 10 minutes of rain, and then sunny, and rinse and repeat. And so we're kind of shooting in the clouds and then getting out of the rain. And so I developed a bunch of the photos, and I like this one the best. Just that the waterfall actually came in on the top right and came down and then came out at the bottom, and it kind of grew as it went, as opposed to being the same length as some of the stuff I found and that I shot. And I like the rock color. But what really caught me to sending you this one over the rest, and I didn't know if it was a good or a bad choice, was actually that mossy rock in the bottom left-hand corner, because to me it kind of, with the green at the top, it didn't put all the color in one spot, and just load the top with this green that there wasn't a good way to really crop out without ruining the falls. And so it kind of, to me, it helped balance it. I don't know if it really does or doesn't, but that was kind of the logic.
Okay. Well, first off, your processing on this is miles beyond anything you've done to this point. So let me just put that right out there. You know, you've done a great job with the color of the water, which I know is that brownish color up there. We talked about that before. The rocks are gorgeous. The flow of the water and your horizon line is fairly good as far as leveling it goes. I love the rock down in the corner. You're absolutely right. That's like the little taste of green down there in the corner. It works well with the little bit of green up in the top. I probably would have cropped this shot a little bit tighter and taken this area right here out. And just cut it right here, and then cut out a little of the green out here as well. And just simply because it's just, you know, you're looking at this rock, and I'll tell you what I'm seeing in your shots is, now don't take this the wrong way, please, but I'm seeing a lack of epicness, which means, you know, your shots are good, your composition is fairly good, but I didn't get a sense of the size of this waterfall. I couldn't tell. I mean, I look at the trees and I'm going, okay, this is probably like a 10-foot drop, I think, here. I can't really tell, but it looks much smaller to me. So the thing that I want to work on with you is opening up a little bit in your shots. You're very tight in your shots. I would rather see you start shooting a little wider, and then we can start talking about cropping those shots so that you get a better understanding of what works in a scene as far as space and elements in the scene. So technically, you did an amazing job with this. It's technically perfect as far as I'm concerned. Your brackets were a little on the dark side.
Okay.
Because when I looked at your brackets, even the lightest bracket, the bottom of this rock was still black. Couldn't really see any detail at all. So I don't know if that's a metering thing. When I was looking at your settings for this particular shot, it had a really weird in the.
What happened? Okay. So
so you know.
Yeah. So this was actually two different sets of shots to pull the shots off. I'm standing there trying to shoot the brackets. My camera, I kind of not really slipped a bunch, but I shifted on this small rock and I bumped the tripod. And I had to shoot a second set of shots. My second set, I thought I lined everything up right, and I was off just a hair. I had some that didn't turn out that were out of focus from me bumping it before I caught it. And the storm was coming in. So I took half of the shots from the first time, half of the shots from the second, and made sure everything lined up. And I didn't have any really good light shots.
Okay.
And so this was one of those. I have 10 shots of this, but all my light ones, every time I would put them in there, if you like that rock you were talking about that was dark, what would happen is the little one next to it, to the upper right of it, would actually get like a weird double image coming off the top. And so I didn't have the lightest shots I needed to pull it off. And so when I went in and processed it, I manually tried to, using Lightroom and the brush, tried to lower the exposure a little bit under that rock to try to bring it out to make it the best I could because I liked the shot. But I didn't have the light stuff to do it.
Well, and you know, the thing is that that's just a technically, again, you pulled the shot off, and that's just a side note is all. That's definitely not a critique. That was because I got to look at your raw brackets. So insider trading information there. So for this photo, Jake, I'm going to give you a 2. I think the only place that it could really improve is that I need to see more scope in a shot like this to get a feel for either, you know, if there's a person down there or something that gives me an idea of how big this really is or how small it really is. So I'm going to give you 2 points on that one. It's a great shot, and kudos for stepping up your processing game is getting way better. Let's look at this next one. Okay, so this was a sub shot. Tell me a little bit about this area.
You know, this is my favorite spot to go. I go here often because it changes, and there's actually some other river to shoot. And I put one in before, and it wasn't great. And once I noticed, like you said, it was a sub shot, I had that mess up with the cloning brush that Lisa thankfully pointed out because I felt really bad once I did it. I decided to throw this in. This is a couple weeks ago. I went and stood down on an eye level. Somebody recommended it. Somebody from the cohort recommended I actually get it from eye level instead of above. And so I went down on the rocks and got it. And so I thought I really wanted to just submit this one again to show that I did the brackets with it. Personally, I don't think it's my best shot that I submitted by any means. But that it was actually shot the right way was what I was wanting to show to you, that I went back and did it and listened to the level 4 critique about doing the brackets and doing it as opposed to the shot. I mean, I could pick this one probably apart and tell you all my things I don't like about it, and there's still some things I really do like about it. And one of them is I think this shot, I did the wide one for this of both sets of falls just to show it because I gave you one like this similar before. But really, this place is better shot as two separate images. If you draw a line down the middle, you've got the left falls and the right falls, and they're way more powerful individually. But I wanted to try to stick with what I showed you before.
Yeah, and you did an excellent job of doing that. And that's, if you were trying to prove the point of I'm going to go back and kick this place's butt with doing the shot over, you definitely did that for sure. I do think that you are correct as far as the this would work better as two portrait shots than one single wide, or you need to go wider and you need to wait for some really interesting sky to happen behind, because I know there's a radio tower up above this. Yep, in the background, which is a lot of work to get rid of, but still, if you had a really beautiful sky, this photo would probably work with that nice puffy clouds in it. So that's one of those things where waiting for just the right moment, to happen, or planning an event to get there at the right time of day to do that, then you could shoot this in landscape and make it even wider, I think, than it is. If my only complaint with your shots that were submitted this time is they're too tight. You're just too tight on everything. You're right in on the borders, and we talked about this in another critique. If I was to matte this print, then I would be matting right up to your waterfalls, and it just wouldn't work well.
Yeah,
so,
the next order is a 10mm lens. So.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And I'll tell you what, dude, if you're gonna do more landscapes, if you're ordering a 10 to 20 mil, you are absolutely gonna love that lens. It makes everything look so epic because it's just, it's great for where you're at. Like when I went out west, and I stood at the Grand Teton, I had my 10 to 20 millimeter. And you couldn't even see it. I was like, where is it? It's like a little line. I literally had to shoot that with like a 50 millimeter and my 70 to 200 in order to get the Grand Teton, because you're out west and those wide shots out there, I mean, everything's big, so you could just use these big lenses. But when you're working with waterfalls especially, you definitely need a wider lens. You definitely need something wider than even 24 millimeter is not enough unless you've got space to move out. So as a bonus, I have decided to bring in this particular shot, Jake. And I was not overly concerned with parts that you may or may have not cropped off.
No, it's the cloning tool on the right fender, the driver's side fender.
Yeah, right here.
Right there. Yeah. That's the one.
Not even that. And this is not going to be scored, but I did want to mention this. Okay, so you've got this cool car. You're obviously going for a symmetrical shot here. Symmetrical shots will be your nemesis. you are not symmetrical in this shot, and so I'm glad you decided not to submit this for your score, because I would open up on you about this shot, and you would have not been happy with the points that I would have awarded you on it, because I do believe that it isn't up to your new processing standards. First off, yes, you have a big gouge out of the fender that's missing, but the problem is immediately when I look at this car, I look at the hood ornament, and I can definitely see that you're off center. And when you're doing symmetrical shots, you can't just step up to something and get it right. You've got so many variables. And I was talking to Jason Hoover about this in the leveling on your tripod for panoramas, and how the level on the camera doesn't do you any good because the tripod is not level. See, my tripod has a level on it, so I level that first, then I level the camera. And that helps me get the symmetrical look right in the shot. But that's still only a starting point, and I will sit with my eye glued to the camera just making micro adjustments and lining things up, and then I have to look at everything in the scene to make sure, is that emblem straight on, and it's off to the right here.
Oh, yeah.
So it's an immediate, it's not symmetrical. And you can see it in the bumper too. The bumper is a little bit, this is a little wider over here than here. So when you're doing these symmetrical shots, they take a lot of practice and a lot of time. And this one is not symmetrical. And the right side is higher than the left side. And there's all sorts of issues. So I'm glad that you didn't submit this, and you will not be scored at all on that. And yes, I think you owe Lisa a beer for that one. So,
oh, yeah.
Or a beverage. I don't know so much.
Yeah, I owe her for that. Yep.
So getting back to this shot, I'm going to award you a 2 on this shot, because your goal was to go out and redo a shot that you had taken before, and show me that you could bracket the shot and get the look that you wanted to get, and you did that. So 2 points for all of that, but we still are going to start your focus. I think you dig cars, and I think you dig landscapes, and I think that we need to now start working on how to make some epic shots out of. I want to get you to the point where you look at one of your shots like you looked at that Justice Hall shot that I did from ESP, and you're like, that's awesome. That's got that epic look to it. So we want to get that with you too, and that requires you, if you get that new lens, it will definitely help you see in a different. Once you get a wide lens, your eyes react differently, and scenes now take on this huge, wide, big, scaping, look. And I think you're gonna just fall in love with that. So, good job on this photo. I'm very impressed with your work, man. All right, so we come to the truck.
That's not the right one.
I know it's not. This is the old shot of the truck.
I'd say, just a minute. I worked hard reaching that.
Well, first of all, we're going to talk about the old truck for just a second. So, some things that I see. I know you didn't know that all of this was coming your way, but
no.
Level 9 is definitely a different level than Level 4. So now we're getting serious a little bit about what we're doing. So this is your old version of the shot, and this is the new version of the shot. So some differences in between the two. Let's go back and forth real quick here and take a look. So this is old. Okay, you were down a little bit lower on this shot, and this is new. So let's talk about the things that are the same in both shots. Well, one of the things that's the same is that the truck is exactly in the center on both shots. So we didn't put any scene with the truck to go with the truck. And there is a little bit of scene that you could have captured here, because I now see this cool like rabbit dude or whatever it is over here holding like a hoe, and I'm like, that is really cool. So there must be something a little more over here.
There really isn't. I've got another shot down the side that you can see it.
Is there land?
There's some grass and trees.
That's good. Grass and trees are good. A little bit of negative space will do a lot for your truck. And I think that, again, it's the trend of being too tight in. So
Gotcha.
you know, but I know that you are working off a set of rules that we talked about in your first critique. So I'm not taking or disallowing any points at all for any of that, because we talked about you know, when shooting cars, the 45-degree angle. You know, we talked about the background and the chromatic aberrations and all of that stuff, and then obviously your big focus this time around was you shooting brackets of these shots, because you were doing HDR. Let's just throw this out there to everybody who doesn't know, but you were doing HDR from single shots, which is basically pseudo HDR, and no matter what you do to those files, I hate to tell everybody out there, it's not a high dynamic range shot. It never. So the misnomer about high dynamic range is that you are never looking at the real high dynamic range shot, because monitors cannot display that yet. So we're always looking at low dynamic range. But when you're processing the photo, you can't take a single raw file and make copies of it and make each one a different exposure, and because if that worked, somebody would just make a program that just automatically did that, and they sort of do, which is photomatic single raw file processing. So for folks who, you know, layer different exposures on top of each other and then make them a pseudo HDR out of these fake exposures, it doesn't really matter how you go about doing it, but you're not really doing a full dynamic range shot like you are if you shoot actual brackets, which is what you're now doing. And what happens is I see a lot of noise with people who do these. You see halos, first of all, and then if they don't have halos, then they most certainly have areas where there's loss of detail in the dark or the light areas, and or noise.
Yep.
And the only way to get rid of all of that is to shoot brackets. So there is no easy way until they fix sensors so that they can shoot in a dynamic range similar to our eyeballs, that you can do that. So no matter what anybody tells me, I will always tell them that if you're going to do high dynamic range, you've got to shoot brackets. And I don't see a reason on earth why people just don't do it. You know, I understand if you got a shot you're trying to save and you don't have, you know, the brackets to do it, but maybe you might want to think about processing it a different way instead of going for the HDR look from a single file if you're just trying to save a file. Otherwise, you got to write it off as a lost shot and go out and reshoot something or shoot it again. And that's what you did. You shot brackets of all these shots. So mission accomplished on that end of it. So now what we need to do is take you to a new level of your composition and get you to the point where you can start seeing what empty space does for a shot, or detail does for a shot, and that sort of stuff. So again, a great job on this. Everything we talked about in critique at level 4, you jumped on all of that and you did every bit of it. So you followed those rules to a T. As far as the processing goes on the end result, I personally, myself, liked your other toning that you had with the other truck. Something that may have been a little harder for you to accomplish now that you're actually shooting the brackets and not using a preset and doing it all manually. The one major point that I see with this truck is that everything that is black is blue. So that's my only problem with the processing on this, is that your tires, which I know are black, are actually blue. Your sign, which is actually black, is actually blue. So what happens there is when you're processing, you got to make sure that you drop your so this is what happens when you bracket, and you didn't know this, so I'm telling you now. When you bracket shots, you get all of, not only the dynamic range, but you get all this color to go along with it, and you get gobs of color. I mean, so much that you just, like, once you turn up the contrast, you're like, holy, you know, you thought that the presets with 16-bit were something. 32-bit goes ballistic when you crank that up. So what you have to do with the blacks to control that is to pull your vibrance down in Lightroom a few clicks, and you'll see that everything that's blue will go back to being black again. And then if you need more reds and the rust colors and that stuff is too muted for you at that point, if you boost your saturation, those colors will come back out the blacks will stay black, which is your goal. So what's happened here is you've ended up with blue blacks everywhere, and that's common for that. And I don't understand, you didn't run into that with your waterfalls, which I know that, like in the waterfall shot back here, let's just go back really quick.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular shot, there's a little bit of blue tinting here, not too bad. This shot, dude, your processing on this shot, whatever you did here, man, write it down, because your color here is killer. And again, something I'll point out to everybody, when you're doing toning for a shot, keep it minimal. I mean, unless you're going for something that's, I think Steve Walser had a shot that was kind of reds and whites and some browns and stuff, because it was more like a carnival atmosphere and a boardwalk atmosphere. If you're going for those colors, that's great. But in a landscape like this, these keeping your tones smooth. Like here, you've got green and you've got brown. Those are your colors, man, and it looks great. Go ahead.
The thing done is Lightroom's everything, and if you notice on the write-up, I use On One for just a little the normal dynamic contrast to add a little more detail into the stuff. And that's it. Everything else is Lightroom. I haven't opened Photomatics since I started shooting brackets.
Awesome. Cool. And that's, like I said, this is lava rock up here. So this was an ancient, I don't know if you know that or not, but this is an ancient lava flow that's come through here. And so that should definitely be jet black in your scene. And that's one of the things when you're out there that you got to be careful with, because shadows over black will create blue. Okay. And then when you do HDR, you end up with a massive blue shadow, and you have to control your white balance, which is something that was posted in the cohort. So that's something you have to be careful with your HDR as well. So here you had a blue here in the truck, which is true. I know that the truck is blue through the paint of the body, and the rust is here. But look at the tires, man. The tire's black.
Yep.
Okay. The sign is black, and then on your new version,
it's blue. Well, and I did. You hit it. I actually raised the vibrance a little bit to try to bring out some of the other colors. Yep. So that's what it was.
Yep. Saturation can go up. I'll tell you the best way to get color out of 32-bit is just to crank your contrast setting, okay. And boy, colors will just explode on you. And then you got to pull stuff back a little bit. But it's the other thing to do too is the trick is to mute the colors in Lightroom, so where it almost looks like a dull photo, but you have the contrast, but your colors are muted, and then take it out to On One and use On One's color processing to now tone the photo, so that you can get those tones the way you want them. But I'm going to give you a 2 on this shot as well, because again, we are still moving you towards the free spirit artist area that you need to get to, which is right now you're listening to everything that I say and you're doing everything that I say, but you're not going out and you don't have the tools yet to kind of just really make some of these images sing. So as far as like everything that I'm talking about and you getting it and then going and mission accomplished, you're definitely doing all of that right on the money. So awesome. That's 6 points so far, so I think you've passed. So the rest of this should be gravy, right?
I don't know. Right. Passing one thing. It's that's only part of the game.
I would like to see again, like all the other shots that we've talked about, wider and work on the color a little bit to get the toning a little bit better on this. Other than that, great shot and great job going out and redoing it now in a new format that you've never done before, so that's very cool. All right, this is my favorite shot out of all your shots, so tell me about this one and falling in the water or whatever you did here.
So this was actually, we were driving down the road, 50 miles an hour, and there's this little ravine, and there's this little waterfall, and we're like, hey, that might be fun to shoot. So my buddy that I shoot with, he goes up one side of this thing up on a hill so he can see it, and he goes, hey, there's more waterfalls up above it. And I'm like, well, then that means I'm going up above it. So I shot some shots below, and the sun was really bright at this point. I mean, just bearing right down on us. And like I said, it was like this little ravine. I mean, probably 10 foot tall on both sides, and it was all shaded. And I went, I'm going to go see what's up there. So I climb over the first set of slippery rocks, and I get up there, and there's this. And I'm standing there, and I'm like, wow, these rocks have really cool color in it, and there's the flowing water. And I'm like, okay, I'll stand here and shoot. And I shot this a couple different ways. I got it this way, and then I did a horizontal where I flipped it, for the portrait photo, and shot that, and didn't think much of it. And there's this, up to your right about 25 feet, there's this little 6 foot tall waterfall. I thought, hey, that'd be a blast. So I shot it from one angle, and I moved around to shoot it from another angle, and I saw a third waterfall. And so I shot the other angle, and I kind of got anxious, and I got in a hurry, which is never good. And I had my feet planted, and I shifted my weight real quick, and the next thing I knew, I slipped off the rock, fell it was about waist deep, iPhone in my pocket. Luckily, I have a life-proof case on it, and I bashed my thigh. And I got out of the water. Actually, I was shooting a pair of waterproof four-season like combat boots that I don't have the liners in. And I had them laced so tight. I get out of the water. I'm wearing heavy canvas pants so I can slide around to the rocks. I didn't even notice I was hurt. And I went, you know what? I better go back to the car because my pants were soaked. I get to the car, I pull my boots off, my socks were still dry. I had them laced so tight. And didn't think about it till the next day when I tried to walk. But yeah, so this is definitely the best shot that I got the whole day. I would agree. I got about 70 shots that day with all the first shot, with the brackets in there, and this was by far my favorite.
Yeah, it's out of the group, this is my favorite as well. Again, with the toning, you are dead on. Your white balance is perfect. The tone of the whole shot works very well because you're working with primaries, so you've got just your basic browns and greens, and very earthy, very smooth across the entire tonal range. Again, composition though is a little tight for me. It's a beautiful shot as far as what you've captured, and you definitely captured. There's a lot to look at as far as the rocks, and you've got good flow. You've got a right to left downward flow, so that you look through the scene and you can see different things in the rocks under the water. I think I would have liked to seen the only thing I would have liked to have seen different with this shot was maybe lower to the water and the camera tilted up slightly a little bit more so that I could see that log in the background to finish off the story a little bit. Other than that, though, Jake, this is your best work to date that I've seen. Are you happy with this shot? Is this something you like?
Actually, it's getting printed as we speak.
So it is something you like?
It's not even for me. I shared it on Facebook, and a gal wanted it for her wall. Out of nowhere, she sent me a message and was like, would you sell one? And I went, okay. Didn't really expect that. But this is the widest I can shoot.
Yeah, we need
the lenses I have.
Yeah, you got to get that 10 to 20, man. So that's the gap. That's the gap you're missing right now. What do you have? A 20 to 50?
I've got a because it's the 3200 in full frame. So that's just with an 18 to 55.
Oh, okay.
Turned all the way, so.
Yeah, you definitely. Are you looking at the Sigma, or what are you looking at?
Actually, I'm about to order two. I'm ordering the Sigma, and I'm going to order a Rokinon 10 to 14. Also.
You didn't order the Sigma yet, right?
No.
Okay. We'll talk about that after we get done here, because I'm going to put you in touch with the head of marketing at Sigma. He's a good friend of mine, and he might be able to work you something there. So. Yeah. I think that's the only thing that's holding you back right now as a landscape shooter, is just not having that a little bit wider lens to capture these big scenes that you're doing the best you can with what you have, and if you can't move, I know a lot of these places, it's limited where you can stand and where you can shoot. The only, this shot I think would have benefited a little bit from being down lower, though. Other than that, though, anytime you have a lot of rocks and you've got a small stream, you can make it look a lot larger by getting lower. And
Okay.
you would get this, you still get all this detail and everything in the rocks, which is just, fantastic. I don't think you needed to shoot F18 here, but it works, and it slows down the water enough. One of the things you'll find when you're shooting, uh, finding the sweet spot when you're shooting waterfalls in your aperture is that we know that in order to make the water look smoothly, we need to be at 1/8 of a second or slower.
Right.
That's the key number to make water look smooth. So when you're shooting brackets, though, the things that you see through this shot of the water streams coming down, and I don't know if you know this or not, so this is why I'm telling you, but when you shoot your brightest shots, so the ones that are going to be the longest exposure, those have to come in at a certain point so that your highlights here, when you shoot your darker shots, are actually not blown out and still look kind of in between feathery and smooth. So it's hard to explain, but so in the darker end of your spectrum of your shots, where the highlights are at, if that water is moving too fast, this will look too grainy down here, and it won't look like hair like you have it now. It's nice and smooth.
Yep.
And a lot of times I'll shoot with an ND filter on to even smooth that out even more.
That
So
was.
look, but what happens is you've got to find out if that 1/8 of a second is coming somewhere in that point where the water's not gonna be too harsh at that point in the highlights, because then you'll end up with a really weird anomaly in the shot where it looks smooth and doesn't look smooth. It's gonna look really weird, and you're gonna end up with artifacts. But in this particular shot, you got the bracket in the right spot. So that's just something to be aware of when you're out there shooting. If you go out and shoot and you're like, man, it doesn't look as smooth as that one waterfall I shot, then be aware that the darkest shot that you shoot should be somewhere around 1/30th of a second. That's the kind of the sweet spot, because what it's doing is you'll still have smoothness, but you'll have enough definition so you'll get this fine that looks like hair. Almost looks like a painting, but it's not.
Okay.
It looks like someone painted that water in there. It's just awesome, dude. This is a great job all the way around. And if I could give it a 3, I would. If you get that 10 millimeter and you make this wider, this is going to be a 3-point shot for sure. So that's another 2 for you. All right, so you're at 8 now. Good job, and that's a point more than you had on your first score round. I think you had 7 on the first one. So you're showing huge amounts of improvement in your work. So let's go on to the last shot here. All right. So I'm going to tell you about this shot because this must have been the waterfall that's up above, right?
No, this was
No.
actually. Okay, so here's what happened. Sunday night, the North Shore got 3 inches of rain.
Oh, okay.
And so we're driving down the road, just interstate, just freeway. And this is where they blasted out all this, and there's all this red and black rock. And there's waterfalls all across this thing. And so we're like, oh, that'd be fun to shoot, ha ha ha. Well, all of a sudden, there's like 5 in a row, and we're like, okay, that's worth pulling the car over. I'm not going to stop and run across lanes of traffic for 1. But for
Right.
5, yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
And so we go over, and it's just, and I wasn't wet at this point. This was before I fell in. And you're standing in like ankle-deep, cold water trying to get the shots. And we're like, you know what, it's still fun. And so I shot this one, and there was 5 more total, and I ended up shooting 4 of them, and 2 of them were pretty good. And I just thought I liked the way this one fell. It was just fun, because it was on this angled rock that was blasted off, and it had all these tears, and it went down and kind of looked like smoke on the rocks in the bottom. I went, it's fun. And so when I was trying to decide what photos to submit Monday night, because I wanted to make sure you had them for a couple days, I got the first, well, other than the Cadillac issue, the first, those were pretty easy to pick. And then I got to the 5th one. And I'm like, okay, I've got to give them one more shot that I like, that there's got to be something I enjoy in it. And the truth is I didn't like this shot. And I looked at it, and I'm looking at the other shots I got, and I'm looking at everything I've shot in the last 2 weeks. And I looked at everything I did for the 20 photos, and I'm stumped. 100%. I can't come up with anything. And I came back to this shot, and what you don't see here is there was a bunch of blades of grass, long, looked like wheatgrass coming off the bottom of that shot. Yep, there it is. And there was these blades on the bottom and those rocks, and there was some other issues. And I was like, you know what? In all the shots I picked, I didn't really get to clone anything out. And, I know I had issues before with not taking stuff out of frames. And I went, I'm going to clean the bottom of this up. And I cleaned out the grass, and then I debated for a long time to crop this or not. I actually left it both on my screen, half and half. Walked by it for a while, and I finally went, this shot, to me, was a cleaner shot because it didn't have the clutter at the bottom. But I thought you could almost split this shot in half if you go to the other one that you showed real quick, the original. I looked at it and went, to me, I could almost cut a landscape shot off the bottom of that and still have a falls shot. And I just I couldn't make up my mind, so I went with this version.
Okay, well, that's an awesome explanation. So let me go way, way, way back to the beginning. Yep. So there were 5 falls.
Yep.
And you couldn't prove that by this shot. I only see 1.
I know.
I'd like to see a few more falls, but if you're gonna just pick one, that's
Yep.
cool. This one's got interest to it. You said that there was red rocks and black rocks. I see a little bit of red in here. I would like to see it more. I think again, your shot is too tight, and I want to see this in a third somewhere, and it's just everywhere right now in the shot. Processing wise, Jake, dead on, man. Perfect. Love it. Waterfalls are hard for blown out areas. You're nailing that. The brackets are working for you. That's awesome. Your color processing in this, again, is perfect. I don't see any problems with that at all. All of that's good. 2 things. You gave me the raw files, which is your fault, remember. This is all your fault. Okay, so you gave me the raw files.
You should show me what I did wrong so I can get better. Okay. I knew what I was getting into.
All right, cool. So when I look at this waterfall, your horizon line is crooked by quite a bit. Okay, so this waterfall, because I know how water works, comes down and falls and falls and falls. So making this into a landscape shot, shooting it in landscape rather, you would put this on the side of the photo more and show me more of this red rock, man. It looks really cool. I love this over here. You get a little fall coming down, and that would have also evened out your grass a little bit more at the bottom because there's interest down here as well in the lower. All of that aside, you made a choice. You went with it, and that's cool, and that's what we have to do when we're doing this sort of stuff. And I'm not taking points off for that at all. I think the main reason why I kept this shot in here along in your critique, and I told you we'd go a little bit farther with some of these, is that I wanted to show you that this is a single exposure.
Yep. Okay.
I didn't process your shot at all. And this is a case where you did not need to use any HDR. This is the shot right here. Without tweaking, and now if I would have tweaked this, I could have, I looked at the histogram, and it's all nice and right in the center is all the light that you're dealing with this. So here, where you may have shot brackets, you didn't really gain anything from it. Because all the light's there, you wouldn't have any detail loss in the shadows. When you bumped up the contrast, you definitely got great exposure on this shot for the water. There's no blown out areas in the water, so that would have all worked just fine for you as well. So when you're evaluating your shots and you're going home and you're looking at your brackets, sometimes you get lucky and one of those ones in the middle is going to work for you, and you're not going to need to do this HDR processing to it. because it's going to work just the way that it is. You can concentrate on toning the shot and getting the color the way that you want to. So that's the only reason why I kept this shot. It has nothing to do with the composition. I appreciate the reasons why you did what you did and lamented over it. And situation being, the shot is the shot. That's what you got while you're there. If you ever get the occasion to see this again, and it happens again with rain like this, I would highly suggest, and maybe in the spring you guys get a pretty good runoff, I'm sure, is try to shoot this in a landscape, and you may have your wider lens that you can do that. I'm going to imagine that at 18 mil, you're all the way back as far as you can go. You probably would have had to stand in the road in order to get it in landscape. So
I've been closer and as comfortable with the road.
Right. So there is a lot to learn on this photo. I'm going to give you a 1 point for it. I think there's merit behind it. I think you did a great job with it. I just think that this is subpar compared to everything else that you brought. So, and I know you know that because you said
Oh, yeah.
so. You got 9 points, man, and you know what that means? That means that, Jake, you have graduated to Sphere 1. So congratulations, you're the first one to do that. And as soon as we are done here, I'm going to shoot you Jack Howard's email address so that you can talk to him about a Sigma lens.
Yep.
That's part of it. And the other part of it is I need your address because I am sending you out a metal print of your diploma for making it into Sphere 1 so you can hang it on that blank wall behind you. And you're the first one, so you're kind of the guy who is the I don't know, the presenter of the very first diploma, but everybody will get one of these. I just wanted to do something special for you guys who have been busting your butts and doing all this work and advancing yourself. So that's that, man, and I think that's the end of their critique. How do you feel?
Good. After it, I want to share one more photo with you. I'll send it. I don't know if I've put it on the yet. I got one more that given time, I would have cleaned out one branch, and I would have shared. I've been working on it. It's a mess, and I didn't want to send it till it was right. And
well, we have more critiques to go, right?
I know.
Yeah. Hold on to that.
I shoot a few.
You got level 10, man. You got plenty of time. You're in level 10, under construction. Jake is moving on to a new cohort, which is not really the new cohort. It's just another level and more space where we can do more work. And he'll still be in the regular cohort, if anybody missed that in the beginning. But yeah, you'll be the janitor in the new cohort for a while until we can get that opened up a little bit. But awesome, man! Congratulations.
Thank you.
And very, very good work. Everybody in the chat and everything is just astounded at the level difference between 4 and 9. And I think you've set a bar for everybody to achieve what you've achieved here today, man. Good stuff.
Thanks.
Awesome. All right, man. I will see you in the cohort. You can hang out. We're going to end the broadcast here. So say goodbye to everybody.
Later.